show you how to catch the jab. Action in boxing is called Parry.
Peace. Welcome to another episode of the Parry, where we don't pull or duck no punches, and the parry is fundamental to boxing. I am your host, Bomani UFG.
I am the pragmatic Shay Black.
And we got another special guest once again, the brother Baba Sekou. Unmute your mic, brother.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me back. I appreciate both of y'all.
Yeah, thank you, brother. Thank you for joining us once again. But yeah, man, we back. I just want to ask everybody to please jab that like button. Go ahead and uppercut that subscribe button. Lead hook that share button and throw a combination at the notification bell so you can stay updated when we drop new content. You can follow us on Instagram and on X at the Parry 101 and on TikTok at the .parry.101. What's up, fellas? How y'all doing today, man?
You know, same fight, different round, brother. We here, man. We here.
All's good, man. All's good.
Well, we got a very interesting topic today. We know Terence Crawford was interviewed on the Pound for Pound podcast with Kamaru Usman and Henry Cejudo, I think his name is. You know what I'm saying? Two MMA fighters, you know. I actually liked the podcast, you know what I'm saying? I did like the interview, but, you know, he made a statement against about Errol Spence about him not being a Hall of Famer. But before we get into that, Shay Black, man, what's up with the boxing news?
Well, you know, we just had Meyer. Meyer just fought yesterday. Michaela Meyer fought. What's her name? Lauren. What's her name? Lauren. Can you hear me?
I hear you. We hear you, brother. Go ahead.
I hear you.
Okay. You know, we just had that fight take place with Clarissa Shields coming in there to pretty much wish her some luck before the fight. You know, upcoming fight in the female boxing, big fight coming up with Taylor and Serrano. That's gonna be and on the undercard, Alicia Garner will be fighting on that undercard. So, you know, we got some female action going on. It's an MVP promotion, as we know. I'm about to say, where'd the brother go, man? He disappeared on me.
No, I'm here. I just had to go make sure I had my water so I could stay hydrated. But can't forget we had Brian Norman Jr. He was victorious in his fight. Who else fought? Tevin Farmer. Tevin Farmer fought William Cepeda in a rematch.
That was a good fight. You know, behind the scenes, Sekou said that he said that the brother was fighting weird a little bit. He said that Farmer was fighting weird. I thought Farmer put up a good fight. He was game, but you know, Cepeda was just too much for him.
Yeah, I thought in the first fight, I thought Tevin Farmer might have edged it, but this one, you know, I think William Cepeda won, even though I thought he got knocked down in one of the rounds. That I thought the ref should have counted that as a knockdown, but he didn't. But that's just the sport of boxing. But in regards to Terrell Farmer looking weird, man, I mean, he got that eye, you know what I mean? Like one of them eyes is, you know what I mean, looking the other way. No disrespect. I'm just saying. So him looking weird, yeah, he be looking weird. Shout out to Terrell Farmer.
Does he have Tourette's?
I think so, man. He got like some kind of tick or something, right?
He got a little tick. It happens while he's fighting, between rounds. Even in his interview, he got this thing where he pops his head up all the time. Like, I don't know if that's a tick. Is it a Tourette's? What is it?
I don't.
No, it looks like it appears to be a tick.
Okay.
But we also had on the same card minimum weight, the WBO, WBA unified title. Oscar Colazzo went against Edwin Cano. You know, it was Colazzo retained his titles with a 5th round knockout.
Shushu Carrington. Shushu Carrington fought as well last night.
Well, you gonna speak on it? Yeah, I mean, bringing it up. Let's speak on it.
Shushu did what he always do, man. He running through opponents. Shushu's the truth. Listen, man, Top Rank, man, they gotta look. They got a crop of some fighters, man.
Mm-hmm.
But that's neither here nor there. I really want to discuss the main topic, which is Terence Crawford said that Errol Spence Jr. is not a Hall of Famer and doesn't have a Hall of Fame resume at this point. Before we even get into, because I want to play a clip from the interview, but before we do that, just in you guys' opinion, what constitutes a Hall of Famer? Like, what's the criteria to get into the Hall of Fame?
I'll let you go with that one, Sekou.
That's a good question. My personal one, I don't think it's a universal definition, but my personal one, and it's multi-tiered. I think you have to obviously have, won a championship minimally. You have to have dominated an era, a division and or an era in boxing at which you were, amongst the pound for pound best, top 10 pound for pound in the world. I think you also have to have defeated other Hall of Fame worthy fighters during that period of time. And not just their names. You can defeat a Hall of Fame fighter who's past his prime. That doesn't count to me. You have to defeat Hall of Fame caliber fighters that were peaking at their peak or just post peak, but still in charge of their skills. And I think the last criteria is you also have to have been. And again, Hall of Fame is a little lower than all time great. I think the last one is, again, you have to, I already said that dominated era. And I think that you have to have also at some point been box office, at least in your division. And you may not have been box office compared to other fighters in other weight classes, but in your weight class, you had to at least been box office. Again, and that's part of dominating your era or an era in boxing.
What you say,
I think that his criteria was pretty good. I was thinking whether any Hall of Famers that didn't actually win a title. I was trying to think, I know Archie Moore as a heavyweight never won a title, but he was the light heavyweight champion. I think that winning a world championship should definitely be a requirement to be in the Hall of Fame, having won at least one world championship, but having defeated other Hall of Famers or at least a number of world champions as well, But I think having another Hall of Famer, on your resume, at least having fought a Hall of Famer, having, to show that you're in that caliber. But I think what Sekou said was pretty much what I would agree with. I don't think that like he said, I don't think there's even a universal requirement. I don't think that there is an actual checklist to be in the Hall of Fame necessarily outside of having been retired for 5 years from the sport. So yeah, I would say that. But I also say that not just the caliber of fight, because you have fighters that's in the Hall of Fame. You have fighters like Tor Gaddy, who was recently inducted into the Hall of Fame, who wasn't actually a world beater, but he gave us a great career of entertainment for the sport.
Mm-hmm.
And so some can argue that, did he actually have a Hall of Fame career? So, which goes to what Sekou said, you got your Hall of Famers and you got your all-time greats. You could be in the Hall, but that doesn't guarantee that you're an all-time great.
Nah,
Yeah.
I definitely agree with both of you. I don't think there's really no wrong answer, right? It's all opinion based anyway. But I think the path to the Hall of Fame, like there's two different lanes to get into the Hall, in my opinion, just based off when you look at some of the names that's in the Hall of Fame. One is your accomplishments,
Mm-hmm.
world titles, number of world titles, have you been unified, undisputed, things of that nature. Then on the other hand is who you fought and who you beat, right? Which what I think would kind of add to like your impact on the sport, the entertainment value you provided people when they watch you fight, like you said, Arturo Gatti. Um, then you got fighters like, let's say, like a Gabe Rosado, who um, I don't think he would be a Hall of Famer, but he was a highly entertaining fighter, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you got some fighters that can get into the Hall based off who they fought, how they fought, when they fought certain fighters. And again, like I said, the achievements that you gain along the way, right, in your career.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when it comes to Errol Spence and Terence Crawford, I think those are two good examples of what would constitute as being Hall of Fame careers. One person has a hell of a lot of achievements, right? Undisputed in 2 weight classes, and multiple weight divisions. He's been world champion. Somebody like Errol Spence, you look at his resume, who he beat to become world champion, unified in one division. But before we get totally in depth into the conversation, let me play the clip from Errol Spence. From Terence Crawford on the Pound for Pound podcast.
I was a fan of Spence. Like, I'm still a fan. I hope he do well and things like that. But like, once it got to the point where I moved up in weight and I'm in the same weight as Spence, it's just like, oh man, you ain't fighting nobody. You this, you that, you this, you that. So now they trying to blemish my accomplishment just to boost him up. And I'm like, dude, you're not gonna do that. Because I can retire right now and be in the Hall of Fame. He couldn't. Like everything that I've accomplished, he's still trying to accomplish.
Do you not think Spence will be in the Hall of Fame?
Right now? No, how?
Yeah, he's right, dude. He's right.
How?
You would
Like
be,
he fought in one division.
never unified the belts.
He unified.
He did unify. IBF.
He unified.
WBA, was it?
He
No,
had
but-
3.
Yeah.
He had the
Yeah,
WBC,
but he didn't unify all 4. He
WBA,
wasn't
IBF.
undisputed.
Huh?
He wasn't undisputed.
He wasn't. No, but what I'm saying is they already called him a weight bully, right? He beat Kell Brook coming off of a loss, an eye injury. He beat Sean Porter.
In all fairness, he had to go over there to get that.
Like I said, that's a good win. Like I don't want to sound like I'm hating on him or
No, I understand
things
what you're
like
saying.
that, but
Right.
I honestly don't know if he make it to the Hall of Fame with the accolades that he didn't got right now.
What when you hear his reasoning for why Errol Spence is not a Hall of Famer, like what do you think? What do you think about his reasoning for Errol Spence not being a Hall of Famer?
The only thing he said that really held any weight with me was the fact that he only did it in one weight division. He's only a welterweight. That might be the only thing, but that doesn't preclude you from becoming a Hall of Famer. But that's the only argument that okay, you got guys like Bud Crawford, you got Oscar De La Hoya, Floyd Mayweather. All these guys have won championships in multiple weight classes, so that becomes a standard. Sweet Pea Whitaker, people like that have done that throughout time. You know what I mean? So I get that, but it's still not a criterion, for being multiple divisions. I just say you have to dominate an era or dominate your division, one or the other. But I can't. I just disagree with Bud. I think also by him diminishing Spence's Hall of Fame criteria, he diminishes his own accomplishment in beating Spence. And I think that's the main argument I would have to say. Like, if you're going to diminish him, then that diminishes you. That means the win you had over him really wasn't that spectacular because you beat a guy who wasn't Hall of Fame worthy. And that's one of the criteria that we established early on. At least when you asked us the question, was that you got to beat other Hall of Fame caliber fighters. And you beat him, you spanked him, and now you're saying he's not a Hall of Famer. So you're actually hurting your own argument for yourself. And last thing I'll say is there are those who say that Bud Crawford's resume ain't that great either. He didn't really fight that high caliber of fight. It's not like the Four Kings era when you had Leonard, Hagler, Hearns, and Duran. They all fought each other, and everybody beat everybody in that round robin. You have four guys that were all-time greats and Hall of Famers. Bud Crawford doesn't have that kind of resume. He didn't have another king other than Spence really at the time, prior to the fight to even compare to, or even somebody thought they could actually beat him. So his resume is not necessarily the strongest either. We get Bud on just his total mastery of boxing. He's just a boxing savant. You know what I mean? And his skill level is just so extraordinary that he, even though he didn't have necessarily the kind of peers that he would need to have in order to really show his superiority, he did dominate, his era. He did do multiple weight classes, so we give him that status. But I think in his effort to diminish Spence, he actually diminishes himself.
I agree, Jake.
I mean, that was the first thing I thought when he said that he didn't believe that he would go into the Hall if they both retired. The first thing I thought was you're diminishing your own accomplishments. You're taking away from your own accolades. A large reason of why we put Crawford in the space that we put him in isn't just because he beat Spence. It's because the fashion that he beat Spence in, who was such a highly regarded fighter. Keep in mind, this fight was arguably the number 1 and number 2 pound for pound fighter facing each other, basically, or the two best fighters fighting for pound supremacy. And the fashion that Crawford did it in made it undeniable. It erased all doubts. So to the point where we don't even know if Crawford, if Spence will ever be the same fighter again.
Right.
And looking at that, he mentioned the not moving up in weight, which I thought was silly because I never knew that was a prerequisite or a requirement to go into the Hall of Fame. Right. I mean, you have great fighters like Marvin Hagler, who was only a middleweight.
Right.
You have fighters like El Finito, Ricardo Lopez, who fought at what was a minimum strawweight, and never moved up. So, and these are Hall of Fame fighters. So I thought that the notion that you have to move up was a little bit ridiculous. And then comparing resumes, which I think we probably should just look into.
We're gonna get to the resume. We're gonna get into the resumes part of it, right?
Because Spence is clearly the best fighter that Crawford fought.
Absolutely.
Here's what kind of stuck out to me in the interview. The first thing that stuck out to me was he's like, when I moved up to 147, the first thing they did was try to discount my resume and say, well, he ain't beat nobody and this, that, and the third, right? So he already feels slighted by Errol Spence because he said, if you watch, I didn't put it in the clip, but he stated that how he was a fan of Errol Spence. He's like, I was a supporter of Errol Spence. He's like, when I fought in Arlington, he came out, he watched me fight. I was a fan of Errol Spence. Then I moved up and we ended up in the same weight division. Now Spence is discounting my resume and slighting me. And I feel like part of his reasoning, it's not totally based off boxing, but some of this is emotion. Right?
And money.
and money. He's feeling he feels slighted, not just by Errol Spence, but by boxing pundits in general about how they rate him in his resume. Now, going into the Errol Spence fight, I do remember he was ranked number 1 pound for pound, and Errol Spence, I believe, was ranked number 3 pound for pound. So, but to talk about the multi-division thing, he only fought in one division. Now, I did just a quick little glance at some Hall of Famers' resume to see who in the Hall of Fame is there anybody in the Hall of Fame that has only fought in one division? You got names like Willie Pep. Willie Pep only fought at featherweight. Marvin Hagler, Carlos Monzon, Aaron Pryor, Antonio Cervantes, Costa Zoo. These are all Hall of Famers who fought in only one division and dominated. So that argument is out the window. But just going into the resume, right? Before we even get to Errol Spence's resume, because like I said, I think there's 2 paths to getting to the Hall of Fame. Now, in my opinion, I think Errol Spence and Terence Crawford are both going into the Hall, deservedly so. But when you look at Terence Crawford's resume, now he was on Top Rank for a number of years, and they got something that is known as the Top Rank diet, right? Like he was fed a lot of guys that had no business in the ring with him. But if I'm not mistaken, okay, he had his first world title shot against Ricky Burns, where he had to go over to the UK. He fought Ricky Burns. He beat him by decision. Then probably the biggest name at the time that he fought, he was 23-0. He fought Yurokis Gamboa. He beat him, knocked him out. He fought Raimundo Beltran, Thomas Delorme, Derry Jean. Then he fought Hank Lundy. He fought an undefeated Victor Postal, John Molina Jr., Felix Diaz, and then finally became undisputed at 140 when he took, I think he took 3 of the belts off of, or 2 belts, maybe 3, off Julius Ndango before he moved up to 147. So when you look at some of these names on his resume, okay, maybe you could say going to fight, Ricky Burns was 36-2 when he fought him. He was the champ. He had the WBO belt. He goes over to UK, he beats him. Okay, that's kind of comparable to Errol Spence going over to the UK to get his first title, but the competition is way, I'm talking about light years apart, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And then probably the next biggest name after that was Yurokis Gamboa. Like I said, who was undefeated, highly touted, world-class type of fighter. He got hurt in that fight.
That was probably his coming out party.
Right. That was really Crawford's coming out party, right? Then he fought Thomas Delorme, who only had 1 loss. Derry Jean had 1 loss. He fought Hank Lundy, who's we know as a journeyman, right? You know what I mean? He fought an undefeated Victor Postal, but there's really no world beat. There's nobody.
But what did these guys do before or after that?
Right. This is my point.
And are any of them Hall of Famers?
No.
That's the point. No. Exactly. They're none of them Hall of Famers.
That's exactly my point. None of these guys are going into the Hall, right? He had a unification against Felix Diaz. Then he goes and he beats Julius Ndango before he moves up to 147. We're not even going to get into his 147 resume. And this is not me trying to poo-poo on his resume or any of that. It's just like when you to just discount what somebody has done, even if it's in one division. Like you have all the accomplishments. You went and you became undisputed at 147, the first undisputed champion in the 4-belt era. You get a lot of credit for that. But when you look at the fighters that he beat, Yurokis Gamboa was probably the best and the biggest name on his run to undisputed. Even the champion you beat to become undisputed, Julius Ndango, wasn't a name. He wasn't nobody. Like he went over to Russia. He beat the I forgot the guy's name that he beat. Took the belts, and he was the underdog. Nobody seen this guy coming, right? So it was kind of like a flash in the pan, and you end up in position to fight this guy to become undisputed. I don't think just based off resume, if people were just to look at that, you really where you at based off accomplishment more so than resume. Like, what you think about that? What I said?
Well, it goes back to what I said about he really where he's at based off of how he beat Crawford, which was Spence, pardon me, which was his greatest accomplishment. So absolutely, it's more accomplishment than I mean, which is to me a lot, and it's so much that that's why we put him where he's at currently.
Right. Because Spence was walking through the welterweight division, he was knocking everybody out. Nobody thought he could be beat. At least not in this, in this particular current time. And going into that fight, Spence was even, if I'm not mistaken, Spence was favored. If I'm not mistaken,
Spence was definitely favored. It wasn't a big favorite. It was one of those pick 'em with a slight edge towards Spence.
And I think also just going back a little bit, something you said, Bomani, is part of Bud's issue and saying what he said about Spence. Also had to remember that this fight was supposed to have happened like a year and a half, maybe 2 years even earlier, and it fell apart because of the money. Spence wanted more money because he thought as though he deserved more, and Spence was like, nah, I'm the lead dog here, and it was really about the split. They really was beefing over the split, and even right up to the last minute when they finally signed it, even up to then, they still were beefing almost up to the last minute. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think Bud kind of sort of just gave in because he wanted to fight. He wanted to fight, and he needed to fight. Like you said, he needed that fight. Spence has a much better resume than Bud did at the time. And again, I agree with Che. His biggest accomplishment, his biggest win, his most impressive stamp on his is defeating Spence the way that he did.
Yeah.
Now let's go.
I was gonna say outside of that, Porter.
I don't even want to get into his 147 resume yet. Like now, because now we gonna get into Errol Spence's resume. Right now, before we even get into his first world title fight, Spence kind of put his name on the map with his knockout of Chris Van Heerden, which was a brutal knockout. Then he goes to the Barclays 2 fights later and put a highlight reel against Chris Algieri. Then he beat I remember he went out to Brooklyn, Coney Island. He fought Leonard Bundu, put him in the coma. Then he has his first world title fight after Kell Brook goes to fight. He moves up to middleweight to fight Triple G, gets his face broken, comes back down to fight because we know Spence was the mandatory for a minute, and he was looking for that fight. He decided to fight Triple G. Then he comes back down and he fights. Oops, wrong one. What's happening here? What is going on with this? Oh, we'll move that. My fault. Kell Brook, he wins his first world title against Kell Brook. Broke the other eye.
Yeah, look at that eye, man. That was a real brutal beating right there. But Kell Brook was very, very tough, very durable, fought back, gave as much as he could until he couldn't no more. This was definitely there you see just pounding away at that eye.
Yeah. Kell Brook was game in that fight. He gave it all he had. He was just overmatched.
I mean, but let's be clear. Like Kell Brook at the time was one of the top welterweights in the world, if not the best.
This was a pick 'em fight for me. This was a pick 'em fight for me going into this fight.
I was a huge Kell Brook fan. After he beat Sean Porter for the IBF strap, like I thought Kell Brook had the goods, and he really was a good fighter, a great welterweight, man.
He was Triple G. He shouldn't have went up before.
He shouldn't have fought Triple G.
He did it for the money and for the recognition, and I think it hurt him. It hurt his career.
I honestly thought that Kell Brook in his prime, he would have beat Keith Thurman, Danny Garcia. He would have beat any of them guys.
Well, I think if Kell Brook didn't go up to face Triple G, we may have seen a different fight with him and Errol Spence.
I believe so.
I mean, he was in that fight. He was actually, You know, he won some rounds early in the fight.
He did.
The fight
He
was
did.
very close, you know, up until around like the 7th or 8th round. That's when, you know, Spence started to separate himself from Brook in that fight. But that fight was very close. Brook showed why he was considered the number one welterweight in the world at that time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And not to mention, he had to go to the UK into this man's backyard and do that. This is his first world title shot.
Mm-hmm.
And like he put a serious whipping. Like you said, it was a close fight up until it wasn't. Right. Up until he broke my man's face. So he goes to the UK. He beats Kell Brook, like I said, one of the top welterweights in the world. Takes that IBF strap. That's when he started talking his strap season, right?
Yeah,
then he goes and he fights, huh?
Mikey Garcia. Garcia was his next big
fought
fight.
Lamar.
That was his next big fight.
Then he goes to the Barclays. He fights Lamar Peterson. I was at that fight. Right. He fought Lamar Peterson. I was at that fight, and I remember when Errol Spence was hitting him, I can hear it in the crowd. Like you can feel it. Like it was almost like the bass from a subwoofer, man. You could feel them shots in your chest when he was landing them body shots to Lamar Peterson. Finished him. Then he goes and he fights Mikey Garcia. Now, Mikey Garcia at the time was one of the pound for pound best fighters in the world.
Mm-hmm. He stepped up. He came up to fight him.
He came out here, and if you watch, even in his clip, he literally beat Mikey Garcia from ring post to ring post.
Yep.
Mikey Garcia was extremely gun shy, extremely overmatched, was overwhelmed at the event, just standing in front of the greatness that Spence presented. And remember, Mikey Garcia comes from a boxing family. He was basically somewhat of a boxing protege, Mexican boxing protege. His boxing skills, his heart, you know, there was no mutt in that dude. He was coming up from 140 pounds, 135. What did he come up from? 140 pounds for that fight?
140. I think he was at 135, then moved to 140.
Yeah, he came up from 130. He was, you know, he was a problem at 135. Like if we remember at 135 and at 140, we was really feeling like we're looking at something special. And the way that Spence just bagged him, just let us know the class that Spence is in.
Spence did what he was supposed to do. He was the bigger man. He imposed his will from the first round. I don't think Mikey Garcia won a round in that fight. And
I don't think he won a second in that.
I don't think Mikey Garcia really was the same after that. I don't think he really fought. I get another one. He did a Kell Brook. I don't think he really was the same after that.
No,
his career went downhill from that point.
Yeah.
I mean, it seemed like Spence did that to a lot of guys.
Yeah.
On his way to greatness. Like Kell Brook wasn't the same after that fight.
Nope.
No,
he wasn't.
No. But he might not have been the same after the Triple G fight either, though.
A Triple G fight, but yeah. But arguably he was winning the fight against Spence up until a point. Like he was game. He came in there looking like he still had something, but Errol Spence he kept grinding him and eventually broke him down. So after the Mikey Garcia fight, which is probably his next fight, was probably his toughest fight. I think he won this by split decision against Sean Porter.
It was definitely
and
a tough fight. Sean Porter.
This is a unification fight. Go ahead.
Sean Porter, you can see, he's always bum rushing, bushing them. But if you look back, bring this clip back again real quick. You know, this was really showing you that Errol Spence can really keep his composure up against a rough, tumble fighter who's just coming forward. You see him slipping. You see him coming back with the counters, going up against the ropes. But if you really pay attention, and then you see him hit him with that just beautiful. That was right there on the button. Perfect. Look at this right here as he catches him with this right
there.
Boom. Oof. Right there. Boom caught him as he was throwing the hook. You see him, his eyes basically rolling back into his head. It was just it was real ugly right there.
And mind you, Sean Porter was a dog, man. Like Sean Porter, to me, Sean Porter might be in the Hall of Fame one day. I think deservedly so.
I think so.
He fought
everybody, and he fought well. He never ever had a bad fight. He might have got beat, but he never had a bad fight.
He never went in there looking like a bum.
Never.
Like Sean Porter is legit.
He is.
That was a legit win.
I think he's a Hall of Famer, absolutely.
Yeah. So he beat Sean Porter by a split decision, and then he goes on. I think this was the unification bout because Sean Porter. I was at the Sean Porter Danny Garcia fight. I believe that was for the WBC. Sean Porter loses. So Danny Garcia fights Errol Spence in a unification bout. And Danny Garcia, another one, a dog, no slouch. And he dominated him.
Yes, he did.
He dominated
him on the back foot the whole night.
Right. And, you know, Danny Garcia was known to pack a punch. And he beat Danny Garcia in his prime.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this wasn't a Danny Garcia that came off a few losses. This was Danny Garcia in his prime.
Mm-hmm.
He just finished beating Sean Porter.
Right. I think he'd only lost to Keith Thurman up to that point.
Right. Like Danny Garcia was a dog. I was a huge Danny Garcia fan too. Shout out to Philly.
You know, Danny Garcia got a lot of lucky close decisions. He had a lot of heart. He was tough. But
I knew you were gonna say that.
It's the truth. Shit. I mean, it's not a
Breeders'
lie.
Prescott.
You know what I mean? Like Danny Garcia got a couple. He got a couple on his resume. I mean, he barely got by Zab Judah, man. You know what I'm saying? And everybody was beating Zab Judah by then. You know what I'm saying? Like, he was good. He was good, but I think that he was, you know, he had the right handlers. He was in the right place, in the right space to get some of them decisions that he got. But he's a good fighter, though. He's definitely a champion.
Danny Garcia was a damn good fighter, man. He was a damn good fighter, man.
You know,
Danny Garcia was a damn good fighter, man. He made Philadelphia proud, man. I think he did enough to make Philly proud, man. Come on, man.
He did.
You know what I'm saying?
He represented.
That's right. You from Yellow Town. That's right. Philly.
That's right.
He's a Philly fighter. You know what I mean?
Yes, he is.
You know, Philly having some all-time greats, man. Philly, one of the greatest fight towns in the world. Really.
Yeah. Philly. Right up there. Philly, New York. Yeah. DC, Chicago. Detroit.
He beat Detroit's another one. You know what I mean? Michigan, period. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, man.
Flint and what's what my man from? What James Toney from again?
Ann Arbor.
Ann Arbor's
in Indiana.
No, Grand Rapids.
Grand Rapids. That's Floyd Mayweather. Yeah, he's from Grand Rapids.
That's where Tony from. Tony from Grand Rapids too.
Yeah, I believe so. Grand Rapids. He's from Grand Rapids. Yeah. James Toney.
I know he's from Michigan. I know he's from Grand Rapids too. Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, he's from Grand Rapids.
I don't think he's from Grand Rapids.
He fought out of Detroit. No, he fought out of Crunk Gym in Detroit, but he's from Grand Rapids.
Wow.
You know what?
They would have 4 Hall of Famers out of Michigan. You think about Joe Louis, right? Sugar Ray Robinson, Floyd Mayweather, and James Toney. That's 4 of the best to ever do it.
Right. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Let me just confirm. Yeah. Grand Rapids, Michigan. Come on, man. I told you it's the Parry. Don't question me, man. Wow. Come on, Jay. I told
and Floyd both come out of
Grand Rapids.
Wow, that's crazy. That means Roger Mayweather's out of Grand Rapids too, because that's where their family from.
Absolutely.
Damn.
All right. So after beating Danny Garcia, he goes and he unifies with Dennis Ugas. We don't have that clip. He fought Ugas, broke him down. I think he broke a rib, broke an eye, destroyed him.
Yeah, he broke his eye orbit. Yeah.
And then he goes into a fight with this man, Terence Bud Crawford. The only blemish on his record. We talking about Errol Spence. Errol Spence has a record of 28-1.
This was more like a scar. Gash. This wasn't no blemish.
This is a black eye. A hickey. They used to say back in the day, he got a hickey.
Yeah, literally, it was like you said, Shay, it was a back alley mugging. But when you look at his run, to becoming world champion as a champion at 147, right? He defeated. Let me look at his resume real quick. As a champion, he beat a 36-1 Kell Brook, who only lost at the time was the Triple G. He beat Lamont Peterson, who was 35-3. I believe Lamont Peterson, the former champion. He beat Carlos Ocampo. That was a mandatory. That wasn't nothing. We gonna skip past that one. Mikey Garcia, Sean Porter, Danny Garcia, your Dennis Ugas. This is what he did as champion.
Yeah, 6 defenses.
Yeah. This is what he did as champion, and then eventually ran into Terence Crawford. That's a Hall of Fame resume. No?
I think so.
Shay, you're on mute. You're on mute, Shay.
Pardon me, there's a lot going on. Kevin Cunningham was recently interviewed, and he basically was stating, or I think he might have tweeted it, but he basically let it be known, like, look, the dude was, he won the title. He's an Olympian. He won three titles at welterweight, and his number of defenses, and basically, dude is a champion. I mean, dude is a Hall of Famer. Basically, he has Hall of Fame credentials, and this is a Hall of Fame coach right here, Kevin Cunningham.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the experts in boxing pundits and fighters and former fighters think Bud is tripping.
Yeah, he is.
Erickson Lubin also commented on it. He's let it be known, like, yo, dude, his resume is better than yours, basically. He basically let him know that his resume is better than yours.
Yeah,
and that's a perfect. No, go ahead, bro. Yeah.
No, I'm saying we also
go ahead.
We can't discount also, and again, I know it's not a factor in it as far as what we talk about tonight, but those 2 car accidents that Spence had, nobody really will ever know the effect that had on his career, man. Especially that first one, he's ejected from the car and all that, and then the second one was pretty bad too. That kind of stuff takes a lot, and I think that's why his face looked the way it did when he fought Bud. Because remember he had to have skin grafts for his face.
Yep.
And it takes a while for those things to adhere and the skin grafts to adhere. And I think that's why his face looks so pink and puffy. The way I never seen a boxer's face look like that.
Yeah.
After
and he had to get new teeth. Yeah. That gotta affect your jaw some kind of way.
Everything.
Surgically implants. Yeah.
Yeah. So we got we'll never know. But I still think even with that, he went in there and he acquitted himself well in the sense that he didn't quit. He kept coming forward. He did what he had done to everybody else. He just got his ass whooped. I mean, that's
Well, let's compare resumes at 147, because we just looked at Errol Spence's resume at 147. And let's look at, and again, this is not me trying to downplay or crap on Terence Crawford's resume. I think he's the pound for pound best. I think he proved that. I think even just with the eye test, you see that he's very talented and he's on a level that a lot of guys just aren't at, right? But you got to kind of blame the matchmaking that Top Rank was giving him at the time, force feeding him that Top Rank diet. And at the same time, PBC and their antics of kind of, using that whole other side of the street stuff that they was talking about in regard to Terence Crawford and why he wasn't getting certain fights. But so he makes his debut at 147 against Jeff Horn, who just came off a victory over Manny Pacquiao, knocks him out. He fights Jose Benavidez Jr., who I think he's a 140 pounder moving up. He's a big guy though. Like he's a big guy. And I think he was an Olympian. He was 27-0. He knocked him out. Then he fights Amir Khan. Yeah, he had a little name. I mean, his brother, the bigger name, clearly, but it's not like Jose Benavidez Jr. couldn't fight. Like he's a good fighter. But again, not a world beater.
Not a
Yeah,
world beater.
He wasn't an elite world class type of name or fighter. Then he fought Amir Khan, who at one point was an elite world class fighter, but we know he was kind of past his prime, way past his
Whoa,
prime. He already got knocked out.
whoa. Was he elite or was he just, did he beat a couple of, he might have been a world beater, but elite, elite is a
I
little
mean,
bit.
again, another
I need a
Olympian.
consensus on this. Brothers
He was
say
a name.
cool.
I'll say he was a name opponent. I'll give him that.
Yeah, he was a name
Okay,
opponent.
okay, all right,
Elite, elite.
fair enough. But
I
at the
mean,
time, he was one of the top fighters in and around that division. Like he was a name, but he wasn't like he wasn't a bum. You know what I'm saying?
his Achilles heel was attached to his chin.
Exactly, that jaw,
That's true.
that glass in his jaw.
That's true. That's true. And he had just came off
Chandelier
of
jaw. Chandelier jaw.
Amir Khan was just coming off of getting, becoming a highlight reel to Canelo.
Right.
And right. So he fights Amir Khan, knocks him out. Then he fights Kavaliauskas, who it looked like he might have dropped Terence Crawford early in that fight. But it wasn't counted as a knockdown. But he ended up stopping him. Mm-hmm. Then he fought Kell Brook. Now you talking about the Kell Brook that's coming off of a broken eye against Triple G, another broken eye against Errol Spence. Clearly past his prime, still a decent to good fighter, but just not on the level he once was. Mm-hmm. He gets knocked out. Then he fights Sean Porter, who, Sean Porter. He always comes to fight. So I'm not going to discount or even mention some of the things that might have been going on with Sean Porter that they were saying at the time. I'm going to give him credit for that Sean Porter fight, and he did stop him. Mm-hmm. But Errol already beat him. I mean, he won by split decision, but he already beat him. Mm-hmm. But I'm gonna give him some credit for the Sean Porter, especially considering, they remember the highlight, they was like, yo, you down in the fight. He was like, what? I'm down. Came out next round, put him to bed, and it was over. Then he fought David Avanesian. Yeah. then he fights Errol Spence Jr., and we all know what happened in that fight. So at 147, the names you probably could give him credit for, or give him some, say you did your thing at 147 against Sean Porter and Errol Spence Jr. 2 names. Like, I don't think his 140 resume or his resume at 147 adds up to what Errol Spence did in one division. I mean, if you look at the names, just in total, right?
Yeah,
in total,
I would agree.
We talking about Sean Porter. We talking Errol Spence Jr. Maybe you could throw Jeff Horn in there. He beat Manny Pacquiao. We come up to Manny Pacquiao victory, and he did stop him. But
coming off the floor with Manny Pacquiao made that a fight that
made that fight.
It was like Mayweather fighting Carlos Valdemar. You know what I'm saying? It makes sense because they beat the champion. They beat the person who. So that's why it makes sense. Other than that,
right?
Nah.
I mean, if you want to give him Jeff Horn, you can. I personally look at Jeff Horn like, but whatever. So okay, but here on the Parry, we're gonna give him credit for Errol Spence, Sean Porter.
We gotta give him Amir Khan though. We'll give him Amir Khan.
I'm not giving him Amir Khan, man. Not that Amir Khan.
I would give him Kell Brook before I give him Amir Khan.
For real.
You didn't fight Kell Brook.
Yeah, he did.
Huh? Yeah, he fought Kell Brook, man.
Yeah, he fought Kell Brook.
We just went over that. Yeah, he knocked him out. Yeah, he beat Kell Brook. Knocked him out in the 4th round. But so we're gonna give him again Sean Porter, Errol Spence, Sean Porter, maybe
be honest.
Victor. Yeah.
Go ahead. Nah, go ahead. Finish that and I'll see
Victor Postol was a good fighter at the time. He was undefeated. You could give him that name at 140. Yuriorkis Gamboa, Ricky Burns. I mean, who didn't think he wouldn't beat Ricky Burns? But I will say, when you put it in context of the time when he fought him, he was making his name. He had to go to the UK to win that belt. Ricky Burns is the champion, but Ricky Burns is no Hall of Famer.
I'm gonna be
So,
honest with you. Go ahead. You wasn't
go ahead.
finished. I thought you was ending that.
No, I'm done. Go
Um,
ahead. Go ahead.
that's a pretty nice resume, in my opinion. In my opinion, I'm listening to the names. I'm thinking about the time of the fights, and I'm saying to myself, who else was there really out there to fight for him? I'm trying to think of who were the other names that we can say eluded him, that he should have fought or that he could have fought during that time period. And I'm really hearing all of the usual suspects in that list that he has for his time. So, some of them fights might have came a little bit later. He might have got what was left of some of these fighters as opposed to a prime version of these fighters. But that's a pretty solid resume in my opinion. And also, I
No, it
have to
is.
add that watching these fights in real time, Crawford, with the exception of probably the Porter fight, and maybe going all the way back to the Gamboa fight, Crawford was pretty dominant in most of these fights, not losing many rounds. And we really break it down and look at
I
how
agree.
the fashion of winning these fights throughout, when we look at that resume.
No, I agree. I agree.
I,
And I'm
I agree.
again, this is not me even talking crap about his resume. I'm comparing the two resumes because if one guy's a Hall of Famer and the other one isn't, right? According to Terence Crawford,
Right.
Well, I think
like
the
there has to
consensus
be
here is both of these guys is actual Hall of Famers,
Hall of.
you know. And I think that, I can't speak for Sekou. I let Sekou speak for himself, but I think that's the consensus here.
No, I
Right.
agree. I think that if you look at, I agree with you, Che. I think that if you look at it in context, Bud's fights, although the names aren't impressive now, that Bud is Bud. You got to remember when he fought him, he wasn't who he is to us today. You know what I'm saying? So at the time, you look at it, it's a solid resume. That said, if you put it side by side with a man that he said is not a Hall of Famer in Errol Spence, Spence's resume is better by comparison. And I have to, so I have to, and that's why I discount what he said about Spence not being a Hall of Famer, because your resume is solid. It's okay. You fought who they put in front of you, and you dominated them for the most part, and you become a pound for pound, if not all time great. But by comparison, you look at what Spence did. He fought the better qualified and the better quality fighters, and they both fought Kell Brook and they both fought Sean Porter, and I would venture to say that Spence fought a better version of both of those fighters than Bud Crawford did.
I
Just
would,
looking
I
at the
would,
common fighters, just looking at the ones they had in
I would
common.
argue. I would agree with that. He definitely fought a better version of both of those fighters. He fought them at a better time for both of those fighters. You
And
know,
then you look at all the other fighters that Spence fought relative to the ones that Bud fought. The fighters that Spence beat were better than the fighters the other ones that left over that Bud beats. And his, as far as his resume. So if you want to discount him not being a Hall of Famer, then you're going to discount yourself. You can't be a Hall of Famer.
indeed,
Exactly.
indeed, it was unless if it's not what Bomani said, which basically brings it back to hate. If it doesn't bring it back, or I ain't gonna say hate, but it's in his feelings and his emotions.
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't, if you're not talking about any emotions, right? He has to be putting too much credit on weight jumping. He's putting too much credit on his own accomplishments because I can see him and his from what he's saying, it seems like his counter argument is almost like, well, look, I done came up from lightweight and won a title in this division, a title in this division, and now I'm got a title in this division. And you know, winning titles, we did say winning championships is important, but
It matters. It matters.
are we really looking at? Are we really like we're really looking at situations where a lot of times these fighters are making these championships. These fighters are bigger than these titles in a lot of these cases. You can strip Crawford right now every sanction and body he has at his division, well, he's moving up now, but let's just say he's at 147 still, and he was stripped of every title he had. Until he's beaten, he's looked at as the champion
by the people anyway.
By the people, you know what I'm saying? By the people.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he's not going to be, you know, hold any of the sanctioning titles or whatnot, but you know, that's where we have that, well, that linear thing, I guess. You know, but
All right,
I'm only
fellas, give me 1
saying all
second.
that.
I just want to take a pause for the calls real quick. My bad, Che, not
All
to
right,
cut
you gotta say,
Just
yeah,
take a-
you gotta, you know, you're supposed to wait to finish, but go ahead.
Yeah, my fault, man. Like we running out of time, but I want to take a pause for the calls real quick. Just want to remind everybody to please jab that like button. Go ahead and uppercut that subscribe button. Lead hook that share button and throw a combination at the notification bell so you can stay updated when we drop new content. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram and X at the Parry 101 and on TikTok at the .parry.101. And real quick, let me just pay some bills. Shout out to Mental Son.
If you don't claim it, I don't want to get acquainted. I cannot keep cordial when your weak ass protocol keep us in danger. If you don't claim it, I don't want to get acquainted. If you don't claim it, we don't want to get acquainted. If you don't claim it, I don't want to get acquainted. If you don't claim it, we don't want to get acquainted.
The Caribbean islands to South America. The one thing we all have in common is Mama Africa. The only way.
Shout out to Mental Son and Artifacts Clothing. Go ahead and get your revolutionary gear at artifactsclothing.com. My bad, Che. Okay, finish your point, brother.
I forgot it.
My fault, G. I mean, but you know, all in all, still, again, like you brother said, if you're going to discount Errol Spence, his resume and what he's accomplished, you pretty much can't put yourself in the Hall of Fame bracket either. And I think anybody that wouldn't consider either one of these brothers Hall of Fame really don't know what the hell they're talking about. Because honestly, I just think Errol Spence, what he's done, his road to becoming a unified champion was a lot tougher road. He fought better competition. And again, this is no knock on Terence Crawford because he fought who he was able to fight at the time due to, restraints and restrictions put on him by promotional companies and, fighters just not wanting to cross the other side of the street, as they say, or promoters, Bob Arum and Al Heyman not wanting to work together to try to make a fight happen when they should have happened, right?
Absolutely.
So it's no fault of Terence Crawford's, but you can't talk about Errol Spence not a Hall of Famer. And like Baba Sekou, when we first started, like what you said, you discount your own victory over him. If he's not, a Hall of Famer, if he's not world class on that level, then how does that win reflect you? Like you just beat up somebody who wasn't really that good or on the same level as you, and that's
especially
just totally
when that's
not
the biggest
true.
name on your resume too.
The absolute biggest name on your resume, hands down. Until he gets in the ring with Canelo Alvarez, of course.
Until then, but right now, we're talking right now. You know what I mean? We're talking right now, March 30th, 2025. That's the biggest name on your resume. You're going to discount your own win by saying he's not a Hall of Famer. And I think I think that's emotion, man. I think that's emotion and a little bit of bitterness from what led up to that fight and all. And I think I think now that people have spoken out about it and people have commented on it and it's been out there hanging in the air for the last couple, 72, 96 hours, whatever it is, I think he would go back if he had to do the interview again. I don't think he would say that.
Definitely after the flashback and I'm pretty sure a couple of his peers have contacted him and let him know, like, dude, man, you think about what you said.
Exactly.
I don't think I think that's really what it was, a case of him not actually thinking about what he was saying, which is easy to do when you're being emotional, but not thinking like, oh, I'm actually discrediting my own accomplishments right now. I'm literally discrediting my own achievements by sitting up here saying that this dude is not a Hall of Famer, but I am. Where does he rank then? That should have been the interviewer's question should have then been, where do you rank him and all of the opponents you fought then? Like, where does he rank at? Where do you place him at if you're saying he's not a Hall of Famer, where where do you rank him at with the fighters you fought? Because then the next question is, who's a Hall of Famer in your career?
Exactly.
And we may see Amir Khan go to the Hall of Fame. That's a possibility. I wouldn't. I've seen people with less who accomplished less, just off of his popularity and the fact that he won a title. He won a title a couple of times, once or twice. Just on that alone.
Yeah.
If,
I mean,
if Bud was my man, I asked him, "Are you smoking Bud?" Like, hey, and
No,
but
that's
mind
not
you, he's
Bud.
on.
That's not Bud. You smoking something else. You know what I mean? Saying
But
stupid
he's on
shit
an
like
MMA
that.
podcast. Well, should I say he's on a podcast with 2 MMA fighters? And what really, like, when he said he's not a Hall of Famer, and Henry Cejudo was like, "He's right. He's right."
He's right.
All I could think of was like, he talking to some MMA guys.
Yeah, Usman questioned him though. Usman was like,
He's talking to a Mexican.
Yeah, Usman didn't go along with it, but Cejudo he did. He's like, yeah, he's right. But Usman, he kind of was like, what? Like, he fired back. But like you said, Shay, he should have asked that question. He ain't a Hall of Famer, then who on your resume is?
Exactly.
And where would you rank? Perfect question. And where would you rank Spence on the people that you've beaten throughout your career if he's not a Hall of Famer? Because he's the biggest name and the best fighter you've ever fought. And he ain't a Hall of Famer. That means you don't have a Hall of Fame resume. You haven't beat anybody that's Hall of Fame worthy, and that just diminishes you.
You know what? But before we close out, because I think you just raised a good point, Baba. Like, let's just look at the opponents on each one of these guys' resume and who we consider to be Hall of Fame worthy. Right now, of course, I'm gonna go back to a certain point, maybe when they become world champions, not necessarily like early in their careers, right? I think with Terence Crawford, we could start at Ricky Burns. Like, would we consider Ricky Burns or Yorokas Gamboa to be Hall of Famers?
No, and no.
Raymundo Beltran, Thomas Delorme.
No.
Derry Jean, Hank Lundy, Victor Postol. John Molina Jr., Felix Diaz, Julius Ndongo.
No.
Jeff Horn, Jose Benavidez Jr., Amir Khan. Amir Khan might be.
Amir Khan possibly.
Amir Khan might be. He's borderline.
Amir Khan possibly.
Possibly. Kavaliauskas, Kell Brook, Sean Porter.
Kell Brooks, Sean Porter.
Kell Brook, Sean Porter.
Sean Porter.
Then you got David Avanesian, Errol Spence, and Israel Madrimov. Clearly, Errol Spence is a Hall of Famer. Now let's take a look at Errol Spence's his resume leading up. Him being a world champion. You got Kell Brook.
So he has what? 3 power. Before we go, before you go there. So you're saying that he has 3 possible Hall of Famers on his resume.
Terence Crawford.
Okay. Just so we let that.
Errol Spence, Sean Porter. Well, Errol Spence, right? Errol Spence, Sean Porter,
and Amir Khan.
Kell Brook.
And Amir Khan borderline, but we'll put him in.
And Amir Khan.
So it's 3 in a pot. So 3 in a pot. So possibly 4. So we'll say 4. Yeah, we'll say 4.
Right. We'll say 4. So he got 4 Hall of Famers on his resume. So we look at Errol Spence, Kell Brook, Lamont Peterson, Carlos Ocampo. Kell Brook.
I think Kell Brook for sure.
Yep. Mikey Garcia.
Definitely.
Lamont Peterson, you think? You think Lamont Peterson could be a Hall of Famer?
No.
I think I put him on the same level as Amir Khan. Peterson was a tough fighter, man.
He might have been better than Khan. Skillful wise, but popularity wise though. And that's the factor though. For you, that's a factor. I know, but we know that's a factor though. We know that's a factor.
We the Hall of Fame committee right now. That's 3.
Okay. Fair enough.
I'm putting them in there.
Lamont, I'm gonna say Lamont Peterson is
I'm gonna put him in there.
It's like Amir Khan. Like no, not like Amir Khan, but he's a question mark. Possibly.
He's borderline.
Yeah, borderline.
He's borderline.
Mikey Garcia is a Hall of Famer. I don't think there's no question.
Absolutely.
Sean Porter.
Hall of Famer.
Sean Porter's a Hall of Famer.
Absolutely.
Danny Garcia is a Hall of Famer.
Yes.
Absolutely.
You're Dennis Ugas. I think he may end up in the Hall of Fame.
He's another borderline.
Yeah, he's borderline.
He's borderline. So we got 4 definites, 2 borderlines. Go ahead.
Right, and Terence Crawford.
5. 5 and 2 borderlines.
Yeah.
But beat wise, he fought him. That's right on his resume. But he beat 4. You say he beat 4 in a borderline, 4 and 2 borderline.
In a borderline. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like their resume.
Hold on, 4 and 1 borderline or 4 and 2 borderlines. Who was it?
Who that?
It was for Crawford. It was 4. It was 4, right? We had Errol Spence.
It was 4 definite.
Sean Porter, Kell Brook, Amir Khan. What we said, Amir Khan. That's 4.
It was 3 and 1. I thought for him, 3 definites and 1 borderline.
Yeah, it was 3. And Amir Khan was the borderline.
Right.
Amir Khan was the borderline.
Right. Okay. So 3 in the possible, like spades, right? So yeah, like 3 in the possible, and Errol Spence had Terence Crawford, Ugas, which we say is borderline, Danny Garcia, Sean Porter, Mikey Garcia, Lamont Peterson was another borderline, so that's 4 with 2 possibles. Kell Brook, that's 5. So he had 5 with 2 possibles. And mind you, the difference is he did that in 1 division.
Right.
Like,
nah, that's a fact. No, I'm not doubting that. I'm not doubting that, but I do want to say something to my man.
Bud got 3 in a possible in 3 divisions, 4 divisions or whatever. 135, 40, 47, 54.
Well, so does that make it more impressive?
I'm just saying, if we compare resumes, and again, he's not a Hall of Famer because according to Bud Crawford, he only fought in 1 division. But he done ran through or had tougher competition in that 1 division than you did in 4. I'm just saying. That's worth something.
I was saying for Crawford's argument. I was saying for the sake of Crawford's argument, not Spence's case. But I did want to say something to my man Karan in the comments. Danny Garcia is absolutely a Hall of Famer just based off his resume going back to when he fought El Cerrible, the war that he had with Eric Morales, you know, which pretty much was the end of Eric Morales as a serious top fighter. You know, and we can go on after that, but he's definitely. I
mean, multiple division champion. I mean, there's worse fighters in the Hall of Fame than Danny Garcia, and I don't mean worse in a bad way. There's
worse than a lot, but
good.
He's just definite though. I think that Karan, you seem like you know boxing. I would go back and just look at Danny Garcia's resume again. I'm not a fan of Danny. I think he benefited a lot from some questionable decisions, but even with that being said, he's a legit champion. He was a legit world beater.
I think he's going in. He's going in.
Absolutely.
Danny Garcia is going in at some point. You know what I mean? He may not be one of the first
I
ballot,
wanted to say that I just wanted to say that to the brother.
Yeah, but, shout out to everybody in the chat too, man. Wayward Brown, Karan Allah, you know what I'm saying? Lolo, Wise Understanding, peace, fam. You know, my man, Kenyatta, I see y'all. Yo, just shout out to everybody that's in the chat, man. Definitely appreciate y'all tuning in with us, man. But anything else before we go? We almost out of time, man. What else you got for me, Che Black? Any closing arguments, closing remarks from either one of the brothers?
No closing arguments, but you know, we do have, you know, some upcoming fights coming up. You know, we have on next week we got Richard Torres. We got heavyweights. We got Richard Torres Jr. facing Guido Vianella. You know, that's next week. Hold on, and then
fighting in a couple of weeks.
The following week, I was gonna say week we had Boots and Stanionis. We got Boots and Stanionis on April 12th, which for the IBF WBA welterweight championships. So that'll be a good fight. That'll be a fight that'll definitely.
Oh yeah, you can't forget your girl, the best nickname in the game, Sweet Poison's fight coming up, Fundora.
Yeah. Oh yep.
Coming up, I think next week.
Oh, can't forget April 5th. We got Joe Joyce versus Joe Joyce versus Philip Herkovich is coming up April 5th.
You got Janet Bick. I'm a Canuli.
Costas, Tim Tszyu, Joey Spencer. My fault.
Joey Spencer.
Like, you're skipping dates. That's April 6th.
That's next
week.
I'm
talking about April 5th. I'm talking about April 5th right now. Janek Bay, Janet Bick, Alamaku, Canuli. And oh man, these names are just ridiculous. My man ain't got
we the worst.
Yeah, my man ain't got but two vowels in his name, brother. Man, you gotta see when you got two vowels in your name, you gotta make a lot of headlines. You gotta do a lot so that your name has to be mentioned a lot, so people know you. Like it's like the first time I seen Pacquiao, I didn't know that was Pacquiao, fan, and I was, I follow fight news, and I seen his name so many times before I actually got to see him fight. That when I finally heard how his name is pronounced, I was so off. But yeah, and magazine.
Fam, you killing me over here. Fam.
You destroyed these things.
You know his name? Do you know this brother's name? You gotta say his name.
I'm gonna try to say it.
Listen, honestly, man, if they name ringing,
I think his name is.
If they names ain't really ringing bells, man, I'm skipping past them. I'm just keeping it a bean, like with me. You know what I'm saying? I know a lot of fighters, but certain names is like the
diehards come here, man. I'm talking. There's some diehards that come here, man. There's some diehards. Somebody passed through this page. No, a Parry fan knows that name. I'm gonna tell you that right now. Somebody gonna know that name. It's somebody who follows the Parry. I might not be able to say it. But we got the hardest core. We got the hardest core boxing fans that watch our platform.
No, that's a
fact. Somebody know that name. If somebody know that name, they watching our platform. It's somebody that watch our platform.
Janet Beck versus Ngas. Holy moly, fam.
You ain't even see. You just skipped Janet Beck. You just skipped.
I know Janet.
You just skipped his last name. But you just skipped. What's his last name though? You saying his first name though? That's his first name. Say that last name.
Janet Beck is the fighter. I know who Janet Beck is.
Yeah, Ali Kamulu.
Ngamisingwe.
Singe is gay. It's Singe. It's Ngamisingwe. Ngamisingwe.
Let's just stick to the most. Listen, man. You got Joe Joyce, Philip Herkovich. You got Tim Tszyu versus Joey Spencer coming up. Mm-hmm. Then you got Ennis versus Stanionis, and on the undercard of that, you got Ray Ford fighting on the undercard, and then of course you got like you said, Sweet Poison Fundora fighting Badillo for the flyweight championship.
She is going to be a superstar.
She's a good fighter.
She is. She has superstar potential.
She does.
She is going to be a superstar.
And you got Ben Whitaker fighting Cameron again in the rematch. I thought Ben Whitaker did some sucker-ish when he fell out the ring and tried to act like he couldn't continue to fight because he was losing that fight.
Nah, that was a whack flop.
That was whack.
I wouldn't even give him a rematch.
I wouldn't either. But there's money in it, so that's why he did it.
There's money in it.
There's money in it.
That's the reason why he did it, because money.
Get that paper, because that was almost like when what's my man Allen when he fought Bernard, and Bernard tapped him after the bell and he laid on the ground and acted like he was knocked out. I know you know what I'm talking about. Allen, they fought 3 times. I think this was the 3rd fight, maybe. The first fight is when ironically Hopkins got pushed out the ring by Mills Lane. The referee was breaking up from a clinch and he broke his ankle, couldn't fight. Then they had the rematch. Then in the 3rd fight, though, Hopkins hit him with like a jab or something after the bell, and my man laid out.
He laid out like he was hurt. Yeah. He got shot.
Yeah.
But arguably probably the biggest fight of April, and the fight that I can't wait for. Probably the fight that I'm anticipating the most is Chris Eubank Jr. versus Conor Benn, which is on April 26th.
That's a legacy fight right there.
That's a family fight right there.
That's a legacy fight.
You got Anthony Yard. Anthony Yard is on the undercard. You also got Callum Smith on the undercard.
Okay.
You got Vidal Riley on the undercard. That card looks pretty decent, man. Looks pretty decent. But that Chris Eubank kind of been. Yeah, they fighting in Tottenham Stadium in London.
London, okay.
Yeah, that place is going to be jam packed. That's for the UK. That is a huge.
Now, when you said that's a legacy fight, right? When you say that's a legacy fight, say cool. It's like this is like beyond their legacy. Like this is like an extended legacy.
Yeah, I'm saying their
like
daddies were legends.
Family legacy. This is family legacy.
Their daddies was legends. So this for bragging rights for Britain especially amongst the black Brits. Both of their daddies was because Nigel Benn was the man that put what's it called McClellan. Yeah. So he was a vicious fighter, man. He was a vicious fighter.
He was dirty, man. Nigel Benn was a dirty fighter, man.
He was dirty, but he ain't the only one, And Eubanks,
he wasn't the only one.
Yeah, so that's gonna be a good fight. I'm looking forward to that one too. That's gonna be a grudge match of all grudge matches right there.
I can't wait for that one.
Yeah,
I can't wait for that one. We will have a show on that fight as the fight approaches. So we're not gonna make no picks and none of that now. Hopefully you can come back on the show for that one, Baba.
Whenever y'all have me, man. Whenever y'all have me.
Absolutely, definitely appreciate you, man. So yeah, man, you about to raise up out of here. Just before we go, just want to remind everybody, please go ahead and jab that like button. Uppercut that subscribe button, lead hook that share button, and throw a combination at the notification bell so you can stay updated when we drop new content. Please help us get into the algorithm. Hit that like button. It definitely helps out the channel and helps us grow because we need the help and the love and the support. Yeah, so Che Black, man. We good? Anything else you want to say?
No, we good. We got the schedule out. We talked about what needed to be talked about. That's today's topic. Salute, stay cool, who's part of the team. I know you announced him as a special guest, and he's special, but he's not an actual guest. He's actually part of the family. You know what I'm saying? So he can go on the fridge without permission. You understand what I'm saying? So you lose your guest status at that point.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying?
You ain't got to knock no more, man. Just come on and walk in the crib. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. Absolutely. And until next time, I am your brother, the Pragmatic.
And I'm your host, Bomani UFG, along with the Baba Seba Say Cool. Just want to thank y'all for supporting the Parry, but we don't pull or duck no punches. And the Parry is fundamental to boxing. Until next week, we out of here. Peace.
Actually, now we're going to show you how to catch the jab. Actually, in boxing, it's called